Will, talk to me.
ABC Tuesday.
They took his daughter. She's coming home alive.
Will Trent, the series critics are calling powerful must-see TV, continues to thrill.
Shouldn't we strategize before we go in there?
If we screw up this case, a cop killer walks free.
With the riveting conclusion to a 2-part season premiere.
Help me.
Get down!
Will Trent, all new Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome to 1865 and our Friday 5 News Roundup on Friday the 17th of January with me, Rich Ferraro. Coming up, we've got a bumper show. We're going to be hearing from Baz with his thoughts on the latest news stories, and we are also going to be discussing the Southampton match coming up, the progress of the women's team, and indeed we will be talking about various other stories. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, let's head over to the 1865 news desk and join Jamie.
Hi, this is Jamie Martin with this week's top 5 Forest stories from the 1865 news desk. Now, the headline to this week's news: Forest are in negotiations following West Ham's interest in Awoniyi. Nottingham Forest are aware of West Ham's interest in striker Taiwo Awoniyi, are in negotiations for a potential move. Now, as per Sky Germany's Florian Plettenberg, Forest are negotiating with the Hammers over a move for Taiwo Awoniyi, with any loan request likely to be rejected, with the Reds wanting a permanent move worth around £20 million. Negotiations are ongoing at the time of recording, with signs of positive. As of late moves, West Ham are looking for a replacement for the newly injured Nicholas Fulkrug. Now, as well, Nottingham Forest are said to be interested in Johan Visser from Brentford, according to John Percy of The Telegraph. So more news coming on that very soon. Second piece of news: Forest have met regulations and will not face PSR punishment. As per the Premier League, Nottingham Forest will not face any PSR-related punishment for the latest period. Now, following last season's 4-point deduction, Forest fans have waited nervously, despite much assurance nothing would happen, for news on which clubs will be charged for PSR breaches. The league have now announced, though, that no club has breached the rules and that therefore there'll be no punishments to be handed out. Leicester have also avoided any PSR-related punishment from the EFL and the Premier League. Now, the third piece of news this week: City Ground Development has new project spearhead. In some exciting news this week, there has been a new update on stadium development plans. Benoy, run by the family of former Nottingham Forest chairman Tom Cartledge, is no longer leading the project to design the City Ground redevelopment project. Now, according to reports, Fosters and Partners will take control, most renowned for designing the new Wembley Stadium, while also having consulted Manchester United on options for the Old Trafford developments. With Evangelos Marinakis wanting an ambitious, modern stadium for the club, Fosters and Partners are believed to be the best to do that. More updates expected soon. Talking of Evangelos Marinakis, he's made further financial contributions to the club. This week, Nottingham Forest Football Club updated Companies House, announcing a new contribution from the ownership. Mr Marinakis recently pledged to convert debt to equity, and now this week he has committed a further £72 million, reducing debt before the new associated party transaction rules come in soon, which adds interest to shareholder loans. A shrewd move from the ownership, who wish to keep Forest on the right side of new APT rules and ensure financial stability at the club going forward. Now, finally this week, Forest have held Liverpool to a draw and moved to second. Now, they are third with the recent Arsenal result. However, a good result for the Reds this week saw them draw with Liverpool at home, completing an unbeaten season against the Merseyside Giants. Now, after a good first half, Forest saw it out with a goal to the good thanks to Chris Wood. However, a shaky end to the second half saw a Diogo Jota goal and an equaliser for Slot's side. However, thanks to some superb defending and marvellous saves, Forest held their own and kept the score level, a result most fans will take based on the second half performance. A good shift from Nuno's side. Now that is the latest from the 1865 news desk. I'm Jamie Martin. Be sure to catch up with me on Twitter, or as it's now known, X, via @I'mJamieMartin. Nottingham Forest related news coming your way throughout the week. Take care, and I'll be back in a few weeks having a brief trip away. So see you in a few weeks. Take care of yourselves, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jamie. So this is the 1865 Friday 5 with me, Rich Ferraro, and Baz. It's a pleasure to have you here, and we're going to start with Jamie's last story, which is that remarkable match on Tuesday night against Liverpool. Have you recovered yet? Has your blood pressure and heart rate come down again yet?
Not really, no. And I've still got that blooming song in my head.
Yes, so people who've listened to our match report recorded by the Marinakis, the Midlands and George will know that we've made specific reference to that, because whether or not you like the song, George likes it. Baz, I don't think you're a big fan, are you? But it was a moment of genius for all Forest fans and all football fans.
Definitely the chant of the season so far, and probably one of my favourite for many, many years.
How does it compare with using Push It for Murillo?
I think actually it's better than that. It's almost up there with the chant from 94, 95, which is my favourite.
The Paul Ince one.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Moving swiftly on. I mean, with regard to that match, I think before we talk about it, actually, let's just hear a snippet of what Nuno had to say post-match.
Yes, like I said, I think first half was organized. We didn't allow too many situations to Liverpool. They had the possession, not able to really break us. We knew in the second half they want to react, and there was a moment that the game was up and down, and then is when Liverpool becomes dangerous and they control of the speed and the talent, and they create so many chances. Overall, very proud of the way we work. I think the runs, the desire of these players is incredible.
And that was Nuno obviously talking to the BBC after the match. Now, Baz, you and I have always agreed on one thing, which is that you can never really judge a manager until you see him under adversity. And so, it's quite funny in many ways, as all Forest fans feel, about how Arne Slot doesn't necessarily react well to adversity, as he's done so very well as Liverpool manager. So when something goes wrong, he doesn't really know what to do about it yet, does he?
No.
However, we saw Nuno in adversity last season, and I was just reflecting that there's such a marked contrast between the Nuno of last season, who was downbeat, dour, quite chippy, and the relaxed, smiley Nuno of this season.
Yeah, you can even, like, if a refereeing decision had gone against us, you couldn't imagine him reacting the way he did last season.
Yeah, and let's talk about the players, because obviously Nuno referred to the hard work they're putting in. The other thing that I was reflecting upon is that you get some managers who, and we've talked about this a lot, they set out these kind of playbooks. They're very kind of controlling in terms of what they want their players to do, and Pep is the obvious example of that. And then you've got other managers who are maybe a bit more old school. I'm just going to say Neil Warnock just because it's the first one that comes to mind. And then you've got managers like Nuno who are somewhere in between. So Forest are so regimented in the way they do things, but we're told that he basically places that trust in the players. So it's a slightly different approach. And also, I mean, I don't want to... there's recency bias at play here, but is Nuno the best tactician we've ever had coaching Nottingham Forest?
I think, tactically, he's getting a lot right. I actually think the Liverpool game, we mentioned this in the group chat, I thought we went to a back five too late.
Yeah.
And we could have possibly nicked another goal if we'd done that earlier, because Liverpool was so high up the pitch. And he's made, like the Fulham game, he made a mistake tactically there where he thought putting two strikers on would press them high up the pitch, and it didn't really work at all. But overall, even though we still play that 4-2-3-1, it's not about the shape; it's about what the players do and the way they close people down and who was picking up whom. And yeah, until we started tiring and they basically went 2-4-4. We just completely had control of the game, and it was a joy watching the Liverpool players getting so frustrated.
Schadenfreude, the football fan's best friend.
I have to say, my favourite bit of the entire match was actually in the second half, maybe 10, 15 minutes in, and I can't remember when we'd cleared the ball long, and Robertson was picking it up, and he was all on his own in loads of space with his facing his own goal, and he was running back to get it, and then suddenly out of nowhere Elanga comes motoring along at full pelt, and Robertson basically completely panicked and just hoofed it into Rosette.
Mm-hmm. And I contrast that to illustrate the point, not to contradict you in any way, but to illustrate the point, the fact that in stoppage time, when Elanga received the ball and he tried to run with it and his legs just gave way from underneath him. And yeah, that's the thing, you saw the players absolutely, you cannot accuse any of those players of not giving 100% in any of the matches recently. So that's something that's really noticeable. Just another quick thing on this topic before we move on to the other stories. Again, thinking about tactics and formations and what you ask the players to do, I know that you should never look below the line on the internet, but some of the comments I've read, like on the BBC Sport forum and on Athletic, are saying, "Oh, Forest are just parking the bus." It feels different to parking the bus to me. Parking the bus, I think, is what, as a point of contrast, what Steve Cooper tried to do when he was under the cosh. It's like, get as many men behind the ball. But this feels like it's more calculated. And like you say, the players have specific jobs to do, even if it is looking like a low block.
Well, this is the thing, like, in those simple terms, I don't think, for the most part, we do play a low block. I guess you'd call it a mid-block, because part of it is to try and win the ball back so that we can launch a counter-attack. And we only really played a low block for that last 10, 15 minutes when we were exhausted and Liverpool basically pinned us back. I think we play higher up than that, and it's more about passing lanes and pressing. It's just we don't press right up the top of the field.
Yeah, well, yes, I think that's a good way of putting it. But equally, we have the ability to do that if we needed to, because we have seen matches where, for example, Elanga and Wood and Gibbs-White will press high up from goal kicks that are being rolled out and stuff if they need to. I wonder if we might see that in a few matches coming up. Anyway, let's move on because obviously it is January and therefore transfer activity has started for many clubs, and the latest speculation affecting Forest is the idea that West Ham, who are without a striker at the moment, Phil Krug is injured, Antonio is injured, Bowen is injured, so all they've got left is Danny Ings, and they actually started Lucas Paquetá playing as a striker the other night. So they need a striker, and there's speculation that they're interested in Taiwo Awoniyi for £20 million. Baz, I know that, like the rest of us on the podcast and most Forest fans, you absolutely love Taiwo, don't you? But how do you feel about the prospect of him moving on?
It's a great thing for West Ham. I think he would fit in really, really well there. This season, it's probably a good thing for him because he desperately needs minutes. You can see he's rusty and not sharp enough. But it would make me very unhappy.
Yeah, but let's just think about a few of the kinds of nuts and bolts then. I guess if we contrast Taiwo's situation now to Chris Wood's situation when Taiwo was the man who was fit and in form, Chris Wood had to wait and he barely got any minutes, and therefore when he came on he looked rusty. That's just what happens with strikers, isn't it? And in the modern game, it's very rare you'll play two centre forwards at the same time. Yeah,
and there's not even, like, apart from obviously the cup game the other day, there's no reason to rotate the strikers. You can't drop Chris Wood the form he's in. So Taiwo's only chance of getting an extended run of games for us this season would be for Chris Wood to get injured, which is always a possibility because it's just a possibility in football. But one, you wouldn't want to see it, and two, it's it's kind of pinning Taiwo's hopes on something horrible.
Yeah, and again, life of a footballer in many cases, especially for strikers and goalkeepers, most obviously. And do you reckon 20 million would be a fair fee?
I can see it being that. What did we pay? 17 and a half? So,
I think it was 17. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get a little bit over the top for a player who's not getting on the pitch. That makes sense to me, and it's West Ham gets something for it. And then the other bit, of course, is getting Wissa in. I've read a lot of all the things I've read about this potential move have said Forest won't sell unless we have a replacement. And Wissa is the one that's being mentioned. Not exactly like for like, but he is someone who has been playing. So if he had to, he could probably drop in for the last 15 minutes and make an impact.
Well, I think the other thing with Wissa as well is that, and this is partly down to the way Brentford play, but both Wissa and Mbeumo, they're capable of playing down the middle, but also they're capable of doing a job in wider positions. So I think that offers, I guess Forest, in this era of PSR, they want to be a little bit more savvy. And so if you can get a player who can cover the wing as well as playing as a centre forward, then that's probably a good thing. And I do also have to say that both Mbeumo and Wissa are absolutely outstanding players, but I would imagine it would take a lot of money to get either of those out of Brentford because...
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing is, I don't see why, unless there's something going on behind the scenes, I don't see why Brentford want to get rid of him.
Well, profit, I would imagine. They might have lined up another £5 million striker from somewhere else, as they seem to be good at doing. So who knows? And then I mentioned the parallel between strikers and goalkeepers. The other thing that's worth mentioning, Wayne Hennessy, who obviously was out of contract from the summer, he has signed a new deal from now until the end of the season. I mean, realistically, it is that thing of, it's the Scott Carson situation, isn't it? Third choice goalkeeper, he's counts as a homegrown player, can add him to the squad, and also because Aaron Bott is currently out injured as well, we need an extra pair of hands, literally. So it seems like a fairly obvious move. He's been training with the club while he's been recovering from his own injury. He knows things inside out. He's obviously mates with the players. I've read somewhere as well that he takes on a lot of the goalkeeping coaching duties as well. So obviously he's experienced, so that's probably a good thing for him. Big salute to that then. Okay, so at that point, let's take a little break and we will come back with the rest of the news.
If your football team had one option in their playbook, the results probably wouldn't be great. The same could be said for your investments. SIBO index options like SPX and XSP can help expand your investing strategies with cash settlement and potential tax advantages. If you're ready for a more dynamic game plan, head to betterwithoptions.com. SIBO, life is better with options. Your investments could be too. There are risks associated with SIBO company products. Review the disclosures and disclaimers at SIBO.com/US_disclaimers.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
This is 1865. Take it to a podcast, but partners, sports, social network, and fan hub. You stand up to protect your team on match days. You can gain rewards such as food, booze, and the merch. You can stay in touch with fellow Reds fans. Use golden ticket code 1860, and you can skip the waiting list. Find the link at 1865 football. And that's where you can follow us on Threads, Insta, TikTok, Twitter, and more.
Welcome back to 1865, our Friday 5 podcast with me, Rich Ferraro. And as you just heard there, thank you very much to FanHub for continued support of this podcast. If you want to get rewards as a fan, then all you need to do is download the app. You can get that from our website, 1865.football. And if you use the code 186-ERG, you can skip the waiting list and join the fun and get rewards. Now, let's just move on to another story. I just want to actually intersperse the stories that Jamie brought us, and let's bring you a little bit of news about Forest women. We will be resuming the women's team podcast very, very soon, but in the meantime, our Adam came up with a little review of the state of play.
Well, a very important week for the Forest women's team. They come off that disappointing fourth round loss in the FA Cup to Newcastle. They fought valiantly and against a very good side. So, hopefully that doesn't disappoint them too much in the sense of going forward. Play Cowser away on Sunday, a game where, well, look, let's be honest, in this division, Forest have got to be winning every game, and that is definitely the goal. However, they have got a very, very big 7 days as they play Cowser women on Sunday, but the week after they have their Women's Cup semi-final against #United. So that may have a little thought process in the back of Carly Davis's mind, thinking about picking this side. Sunday against Cowser away will be a game that Forest will be looking to win after their very convincing home win against them earlier in the season. Let's hope the Reds can get that win on Sunday, barring any injuries as well, going into that very, very big clash against #United in the Cup semi-final.
Thank you very much, Adam. And as I mentioned there, we'll be hearing from you as we resume the women's show very, very soon as the women's team get back underway. So there's a lot going on with the women's team. So unfortunately, they are out of the Women's FA Cup after that defeat to Newcastle. I think it's worth pointing out, Newcastle are a team who have greater resources, are higher than us in the pyramid. And so, although it's disappointing, I think the women's team can hold their heads high. Baz, the next two matches are against Sporting Calcer in the league and then #United in the Women's National League Cup semi-final. So that was earlier in the competition. The women's team had beaten Long Itchington. So the question I have for you isn't about the women's game at all, but which is a more silly name, Sporting Calcer, #United, or Long Itchington?
I'd say #United, but
I would agree.
I like you to at least pretend to have some geography to it.
Yeah, I have no idea where any. I mean, Long Itchington are from Long Itchington, hence that's the only way you could come up with that name. Surely, either that or they've been looking at a medical dictionary. But yeah, the rest of it's nonsense. Anyway, let's go back to the stories that Jamie brought us, and the next one involves the potential redevelopment of the City Ground. This is a topic we've talked about many, many times because, frankly, not much has happened. There's been very stop-start. And so two aspects to this. Number one is that Fosters and Partners have been consulted about potential development of the ground. And of course, they're the folks who are behind Wembley. Now, on the one hand, Wembley, we were lucky enough to go to Wembley on that fateful day. Great stadium, absolutely brilliant. On the other hand, it was over budget and took way longer to build than everyone hoped. I think that's possibly a symptom of what it's like to build anything in the UK, though, maybe. The other aspect of it is, of course, Benoy are out. Benoy being the company of which Tom Cartledge is in his family of companies. And, of course, Tom Cartledge is not only no longer the chairman, he's not even a director of the club anymore. Let's start with that. Is there anything for us to read into that? Are we going to get conspiratorial about it?
I would say I'm not very surprised that when he was no longer the chairman, and given Mr. Marinakis' record, I'm therefore not surprised that Benoy aren't involved afterwards. But I mean, anyone who made that decision will be able to see that's what the conclusion people are going to draw. I don't know if that's actually what's going on, but what I will say is I'm not an expert on the world of architecture, but Foster and Partners are a huge name, and not just New Wembley, but all sorts of massive prestigious projects around the world. So they're about as big as you can get, and that shows a bit of ambition, I think.
And do you think as well, if there's going to be because naturally I'm sure they're going to draw up new plans, I mean, that could potentially be a reflection of the fact that Forest have a higher status now than when the original plans were drawn up?
Yeah, definitely. And as I understand it, there's been some progress on the talks on buying up the land around it as well. So that's probably made a difference on what's possible.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think speaking as a fan, I think most fans would agree. We just want something to happen now, don't we? It's been dragging on for long enough.
It's about 6 years now.
Yeah, and of course, some of those are reasons beyond the control of the club. But yeah, when it's taking this long, and you'd imagine that maybe the big guys may be getting a little bit impatient now, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shipping containers isn't enough.
No. Well, it's his gig, but it's not enough in terms of.
I have to say as well,
it
it's quite nice when the attendance is announced and it's above 30,000 every week now.
Yeah,
because of those containers.
Psychologically, it feels quite nice, doesn't it? Speaking of the big guy, he has converted some of the club's loans into equity, this time to the tune of £72 million. And I would also like to double back that with the other story that Jamie brought us, which is that there's not going to be any PSR punishments for any Premier League clubs this season. So any thoughts on those two elements there, Baz?
Well, given what we've been through, I would have been extremely disappointed if we'd had another PSR issue to deal with. But then also this time round, we've got the money from Brennan will have counted towards these accounts. So it would have been catastrophic if we'd managed to fail on that front. And again, of course, Nick DeMarco, who didn't manage to do the job for us, has done it for Leicester. So
yeah, it's interesting that, because as far as I can, this is from reading a couple of pieces, one in The Athletic and one on BBC Sport, and both of those basically suggested, especially the Athletic piece, that Nick DeMarco actually used the court case that where he represented Forest last year, and he used that as evidence as to why Leicester shouldn't get a punishment this year. So, if nothing else, it shows that he's savvy.
Yeah,
he's got a reputation for a reason, hasn't he? And then the weird thing, though, is that Leicester apparently won't get a punishment from the Football League if they go down, and that feels like they've dodged one again, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, considering their argument was we were in the Football League, so therefore it doesn't count for the Premier League. What's their argument the other way round?
I think they're going for the argument of being a stateless citizen, aren't they? Like, well, we weren't in the Premier League, but we also weren't in the Football League, so therefore,
or some sort of double jeopardy kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Still, I mean, what I also think, in seriousness with regards to Forest, is that I think the club have learned. They've learned the hard way, haven't they, after the PSR punishment? But they've learned that actually that slightly more considered approach to transfers is definitely the way to go, and we're seeing the benefits of it on and off the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think we needed to do that anyway, and apparently our recruitment is very data driven nowadays, but than that everyone's is. But I think certainly the purchases, the signings we've made recently have been exceptional, whether it's of the obvious ones like Milenkovic and Morato, but like Eric da Silva Moreira, he looked a fantastic player. He's just obviously a bit young and not quite ready yet.
Yeah, and I mean, did you think as well? So obviously Milenkovic was brought in for a reason to shore up our defence, and he's done a fabulous job of it. And you see how good the defence, how strong and confident the defence look, not just from his ability but from his presence. Morato's almost a bit of future-proofing, anticipating that Murillo might not be here, and you get the feeling that Moreira's possibly the same. It's like, we know that fullback has been a bit of an issue for us. I mean, who knows whether we're going to sign Alex Moreno, but on a permanent deal, that is. But certainly thinking about the fact we've got Ola Aina and Nico Williams currently occupying the fullback berths, we've got Moreno, we've still got Toff, and then we've got Moreira, and suddenly it's looking a bit more healthy, isn't it? And I know I've said this in previous podcasts, I just want to say a word about Nico Williams, who to me has to get the prize for the most improved player this season.
I thought he's been fantastic, and on Tuesday night he was outstanding. Like, I mean, both the fullbacks were incredible all game.
Yeah, and think what you like about Mo Salah, but he is statistically and by all measures the most effective forward in the Premier League this season, and he barely got a touch while Nico was there, or he barely got a sniff rather, and the only chance he had that was really of any value while Nico was on the pitch was that shot that he had, which Sells made the save. You know, he palmed it away, but actually it wasn't a great shot because Salah was under pressure from Nico.
Yeah, and there was a point earlier in the game, I think maybe in the first half, where it's not just his scoring, it's his assists as well. And he put in like a deep cross, and I was thinking, so because I spotted whoever on the far post, and the cross was just wild.
Yeah,
it's like that reflected Liverpool's entire game.
Apparently, he's got something ridiculous like 40 goal involvements, and he barely had a touch. Or a meaningful touch anyway. So that says something. Let's move on, because we're talking about on the pitch matters once again. And let's have a think about the forthcoming match on Sunday against Southampton. After Southampton, so obviously Southampton we know are potentially on course to usurp Derby as being the worst team in history. After Southampton, we've also got Bournemouth the following week and then Brighton the week after that. So 3 matches there. How many points do you think Forest should be aiming for from those 3?
7, I would say. And of them, Bournemouth's the one that worries me the most.
Yeah, especially away. Yeah, and they're a very good team these days, and Iraola has proven to be a very, very good manager, I would say. And if it wasn't for the fact that Arne Slot has come in at Liverpool, having taken over from like a legacy manager, and then Nuno has done such wonders with Forest, I think people would be talking about Iraola as manager of the season. Yeah,
definitely. The one thing that might work in our favour is their squad is very, very thin at the moment.
And so with regard to the Southampton match, I mean, really, we've definitely got to be looking for 3 points, haven't we?
We should be getting 3 points. Obviously, it's a new manager. But again, their squad's quite thin and their confidence is still low despite the new manager. So you'd hope that we shouldn't struggle for that in that match. But you never know.
Interestingly, my friend who's a Southampton fan, he said we've gone from one extreme, Russell Martin, where they're trying to play it out even though they haven't got the ability to do it, to just hitting it long aimlessly and then losing the ball that way instead. So yeah, I think it's, you've got to strike while the iron's hot. Southampton, they haven't got enough Premier League quality players and they're low on confidence. The new manager bounce hasn't really happened. So we've got to be striking gold there. I just want to finish off by letting you listeners know that you may have heard earlier, just before Christmas, that we were trailing that with Billy Davies coming to town in February, we're going to have a bit of a giveaway. Now, we've not had time to get it in order for this podcast, but in the Southampton match, we will be letting you know about how you can win 2 tickets to go to the audience with Billy Davies, where he's going to be joined by Wes Morgan and Terry the Kitman, amongst other people. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I'm going to say a very big thank you to you, Baz, to Jamie for bringing us the news. As he mentioned, he's going to be away for a few weeks, so enjoy your trip. And also, naturally, to you, listener, thank you very much for joining us for another 1865 podcast. We'll be back on Sunday after the Southampton match. In the meantime, come on, you Reds.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.